Hey guys, it's Fear here. I said I was going to do this video for a long time and I never got around to it, but here it is, finally. Finally picked up the courage to do it. I've never made a video or recording or anything like that. This is going to be a multiplayer game of Homeworld Remastered Collection. And I just saw that there were no commentaries from the player's perspective. There's a lot of third-party ones over on the Dreamlands channel. You know, people commenting on other people's games. I thought it would be nice to get a first-person perspective. You know, why am I doing the things I'm doing? What am I doing here? How fast am I doing it? What order do I do things in? So hopefully you'll be able to see some of that during this recording. And hopefully I get my point across, because there's a lot to talk about and not that much time to talk about it. So here we are, I'm starting the game. I rolled Higaran. I always pick random to keep the game interesting. I'm up against Power Man. He's Higaran. He's quite new, so we won't see too much incredible things out of our opponents here. Xenofix, however, is new, but he's improving extremely quickly, which is the main thing that you need to be looking at if you're a new player. Don't worry about losing or winning games. Don't worry about your current skill level. Just worry about how much better you're getting with each passing game. And Xenofix is a monster in that regard. He'll probably catch up to the best of us. You know, just give him a couple of weeks. You'll see me losing to him probably. Now Xeno, I think he also plays random. He rolled Homeworld 1, which is, I think it's his favourite race. He likes to do double Corvette pushes, or mixed Corvette pushes. He pushes out with light vets and heavy vets, and he actually does that this game. Power Man just makes, his tech is very confused. He makes quite a lot of mixed units, and that's not really a good thing in Homeworld Remastered. You need to be definite with your tech, you need to be counter-teching people. You can't really just get away with whatever you want, especially in the situation that I put them in. Now, what am I talking about? Well, I opened with a research module, and Higaran's opening with research modules in 2.3. You're either going to see Hypertorp, or you're going to see what I'm about to do, which is double gunships. Gunships got a lot better in 2.3. Their stats, they're about the same, but they've got more penetration versus fighters. Their accuracy versus fighters seems higher. I'm not sure if that's true though. And interceptors do a lot of less damage to gunships in 2.3 compared to how they performed in 2.1, where gunships honestly just lost to interceptors. Because interceptors were too fast, they did too much damage, yada yada. I dislike interceptors as just a general rule. I think they're quite unhealthy for the game. So I'm quite happy to see in 2.3 that there are reliable answers that actually work. You know, it says anti-fighter on the thing. Surely it should actually be anti-fighter, but well, in 2.1, it's not. Gunships are really bad in 2.1. So, yeah, double gunship push. The reason I'm doing this is because it hits quite hard, quite early, and I'm hoping my opponent here won't have the forces necessary to defend his resourcing. I'm trying to get away with some economic damage early. That'll put me in a lead that I need, because this is really a 2v1. I do have my ally as an AI, and you'll see it buffers units for me. It does a little bit of damage, but honestly, this is a 2v1. I've been around for a very long time, so I know exactly what I'm doing, which is incredibly unfair for my opponents, but they are 2v1, so that's how we try to balance this game. So I'm just building my gunships now. I get a capital ship facility. The reasoning behind the capital ship facility is that I'm hoping that I can distract them at the front of their bases with my gunships for long enough for me to get a carrier out for free. I don't want to be attacked while I'm building my carrier, because I won't have the units to defend my resourcing. But we're quite early in the game, so I doubt they'll attack me too quickly. I'm more worried about Xenofix. He's very good at economic harassment. Power Man, I think he's just playing for fun. He's just doing whatever the heck he wants, so I'm not worried about him very much. But Xenofix is on the other side of the map, which is lucky for me, because it means I don't have to worry about some Corvette rush. I can just play my game, macro up. Homeworld 2 wants to macro up against Homeworld 1. Homeworld 1 does a lot better in the early game. The reason for that is not necessarily because of any particular unit matchup. It's actually because Homeworld 1 carriers take so long to build, and they're so deep in a tech tree that they take too long to come out. You know, a Homeworld 1 cannot actually use 3 or 4 patches until they get extra carriers out, and that's going to be too long into the game. They don't start getting that carrier out until In 2.1, they get the carrier out if they rush it at about 12 to 14 minutes. Yeah. Whereas you see, I'm Higaran. I don't particularly rush this carrier. It's gonna come out significantly before 14 minutes. So, yeah, that's probably Homeworld 1's main weakness. It was actually highlighted a lot when 2.3 came out, because the 666 bug, which is a bug in 2.1, was fixed. What that bug did was it made Homeworld 2 fighters basically worthless against Homeworld 1 fighters. Once that got fixed, the weaknesses of Homeworld 1 were just plain for everyone to see. So they had to be buffed a little bit in certain areas. Carriers don't take quite as long to build anymore. Stuff like that. So here's the first skirmish of the game, I guess you could say. My gunships, I've got 4 of them now. That's a good number, so I send them in. I see he's only really got interceptors and gunships of his own, and none of them have upgrades. That's really important. If you're planning to defend or attack, you need your upgrades. I mean, he doesn't even have upgrades on his interceptors. Interceptor upgrade costs, I think it costs 500. That's not really a big expenditure. You can just get that. Even if you're not making interceptors, you could get the interceptor upgrade. It makes them so much more effective. It increases their survivability a ludicrous amount. They make more passes per second, so that's more damage per second. Yada 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 yada. They can dock easier, another thing. The fact that he's missing his upgrades is so detrimental to him. If he had his upgrades, I probably would have still taken this fight, because he only has interceptors, I have gunships, but it wouldn't have gone so cleanly for me. You know, the little things like that, they add up and they allow me to push forwards. So, yeah. Upgrade advantages, super important. He's starting to get pulsars now, which is annoying for my gunships, but again, he doesn't have the upgrades. I do have my upgrades. One pulsar squadron is not going to clean up my gunships anytime soon. He needs a good number of those. I start getting my own pulsars out. It's quite important that I start taking away from pure gunships, because what happens, you'll see, they start getting a lot of corvettes. A lot of corvettes. And after that, they go into frigates. So gunships, their usefulness is actually completely faded. That was a good reaction from them to move away from fighters, but there were a lot of windows later on in the game where they could have brought fighters back out, and they never did, so yeah. That's just what I was talking about earlier. You need to be reacting to the tech that your opponent's making. React to the tech that they have right now. Don't just stay on one thing. Don't try and counter fighters if I have no fighters left. Don't try and counter gunships if I have no gunships left. You know, just examples. So Xenofix, this is what I was talking about earlier when I said he's a really good economic harassment player. He has a lot of corvettes here, but they're all light corvettes. Light corvettes don't have a great matchup against corvettes themselves, but what they do have a great matchup against is collectors. And I never caught it, but I think he has a probe in that back nebula just behind my mothership that I've never found. And what he does with his corvettes here, a lot of players don't do. Even the quote-unquote good players, they don't do this. I don't know why. I think it's it's a noob trap almost to not attack economic areas from your opponent. It's very devastating, especially in Homeworld Remastered, because you can only actually get 22 collectors. They cost quite a lot to replace. They take a long time to replace. So killing collectors is quite devastating for your opponent. And Xeno says, well, I can't take the military fight, but what I can do here is I can just ignore the military from you, because you don't have enough of it, and attack your vulnerable collectors. I see these corvettes coming and I say, oh god, I can't react to this in time. My pulsars are sluggishly trying to catch these light vets. I try and get my refinery and my collector health upgrades, which, by the way, they're complete crutches. I think they're both terrible upgrades that shouldn't exist, but you know, use what you're given. I'm trying to get those out, but I get the refinery one first. Now that was a huge mistake from me. I should have got the collector one first. Light vets don't pose any threat to refineries at all, but they kill collectors very quickly. And you see they've already killed one, they're going to kill another 3 or 4. And that's just a handful of light vets. That was such a good move from Xenofix. Probably one of the best moves in this entire game from any player. If he'd been able to keep up this momentum, I probably would have lost. You know, definitely a scary player. I have some gunships over here. Similar to light vets, they don't really do anything to enemy corvettes, so I try and respond in the same way. My gunships are much less effective in this role though, simply because of how clustered their military is, how close it is to their RU patches compared to mine, which had to run a long way to defend. I dock that pulsar because if you're playing Homeworld 2, it's sounds simple, but a lot of people forget to do this. You want to dock squadrons that are injured, because they will dock with something, they will gain back their friends, that all their health will be replenished, and it's all free. So, you know, that's an advantage that you don't want to throw away. Homeworld 1 corvettes can't do that. You know, they can dock if they're injured and get free health, but you won't regain 2 additional corvettes from docking. It's a huge advantage that Homeworld 2 has in that area. And it's part of the reason why Homeworld 1 interceptors, they only do so-so against Homeworld 2 interceptors in 2.3 now. A Higaran who docks their interceptors when they're injured will probably win against a Homeworld 1 who's just spamming interceptors at them in 2.3. 2.1 they were broken, so that wouldn't happen, but yeah. I have to replace all of those collectors that Xeno sniped. Obviously, an amazing play from him. It slows me down a lot. I don't really want to be making collectors at this point in the game. I just want to be spamming pulsars, but I can't. I have to replace these collectors, because I have to stay on an even economic footing with these guys, because I'm already 2v1. I need every advantage I can get. Being behind in economy is completely unacceptable for me in this game. So I place a lot of value on economy. So I sent that second carrier that I built to the 3rd patch, and I'm starting to saturate that as well. So even though he sniped quite a few collectors, I'm doing okay. I don't have complete vision of their side of the map, but I think I'm ahead in economy right now. Xeno tries again to just bypass the fight and come for my economy. This time it's not really going to work so well because my pulsars are already in position. It probably would have been better for him to try and go around the outside of the map, try and flank me, snipe my collectors from places that I can't see, because my vision is not perfect on this map. But yeah, you're going to see all of these corvettes just get cleaned up. They actually turn to... I don't know what they're shooting at here, guys. Oh, the torpedo frigate that comes out. I start making torpedo frigates. The reason for this is because they've got so many corvettes now. Pulsars will clear these up, but not particularly quickly. Torpedo frigates will just make mincemeat of them, and hopefully, what I'm hoping, is that will free my corvettes up to go and attack collectors, refineries, things like that. That's not what happens though, because at the same time I'm getting anti-corvette frigates out, so does Xeno. He's got his assault frigates on the field now, and Power Man starts to get frigates out himself. This is the diciest part of the game for me, because I'm still really only on corvette tech. Corvette pulsars do fine against frigates, but they're going to make a lot of frigates. Too many for me to deal with. I can't make that many pulsars at once. So for the time being, I still make torpedoes, because torpedoes have a good matchup against small numbers of frigates. But you'll see, I actually get overwhelmed on the frigate count, and it gets quite dicey for me, but I make a technology switch. I keep talking about these tech switches, but you need to be making them. It's super important. This is the only thing that kept me in this game. I make another tech switch in a couple of minutes. I decide here to attack Xeno's resourcing with my built torpedoes with a hyperspace module. This is Hypertorp. Usually it comes out really early for Higara, but you can do it whenever if you don't see any inhibs. And I didn't see any inhibs from them. I have good vision of their production vessels. So I start hyperspacing my torpedo frigates back, but I forgot the improved torpedo upgrade. If you're Higaran and you want to snipe collectors, you need that improved torpedo upgrade. Torpedo frigates absolutely... They do okay against collectors without it, but there's a huge difference between a torpedo frigate taking 2 torpedoes and 3 torpedoes to kill a collector. That difference really does add up. For some reason Xeno had just a couple of frigates at his back patch for some reason. I don't know if that was a preemptive move, or whether it was just unlucky for me. But my torpedoes get cleaned up much faster than I'd like them to. In conjunction with the lack of improved torpedoes, it was just, it really wasn't worth it for me to try and do this. I have a second torpedo that I hyperspace. I do get 1 collector, but the second torpedo that I hyperspace in, I forget to assign it to collectors, so it just starts shooting at assault frigates and it does nothing and dies for no reason. So I didn't do too well on this Hypertorp thing. It was worth the try though, worth the try. Now here's the switch I start making. I slap fighter facilities on nearly all of my production vessels. The reason for this is because they are starting to tech super hard into frigates. Like, you can see how many frigates Xeno has now, how many frigates Power Man has now. It's starting to get quite dangerous. Oh, I'll talk about this. This is a bug. If Homeworld 2 strike dock with a Homeworld 1 refinery, they bug out and they're basically dead, because that final corvette there, you see, he's actually inside the refinery and will never undock. He's just stuck in there. It's a bug, and I don't know when it will be fixed or if it'll ever get fixed. You know, very annoying. And it's an AI ally, so I can't ask them to scuttle their refinery, which would free the squadron, but, you know, can't speak to the AI. These gunships I was using in conjunction with my torpedoes to do economic harassment to Xeno. I made another mistake, so like 3 or 4 mistakes coming in from me on this eco harass. I forgot to set them to aggressive. They're currently in evasive mode, which means their damage is much lower than it should be, so I could have probably sniped 3 or 4 collectors on his patch there. I end up sniping 2, I think. Definitely not the best. I hyperspace my carrier away because it's starting to get focused. I don't want to lose a carrier. If I lose a carrier now, I'll probably lose the game. There's just too much on the field for them. I need to be pumping out units as fast as possible. I don't have the time to get another carrier out for free if I lose one. So, yeah, I have to hyperspace it away. They probably should have an inhib, so I probably shouldn't be able to hyperspace away like that, but, you know, I take what I'm given. I was already building a cloak on my other carrier, which is something that people need to do more. If you've got carriers at the front of any fight or in the middle of any fight, you need cloaks on them. It increases their survivability a ridiculous amount. Even if the opponent has proximity detectors or anti-cloaking sensors, what you can do is, if your carrier is getting focused, you cloak it. That will cause all the units that were attacking the carrier, even if there's a proximity sensor, they'll re-aggro to different units. What you can do then is, if the enemy retargets your carrier, you uncloak and you recloak again, and you just keep toggling your cloak, and it causes the enemy units to continually re-aggro to different units, so it increases the survivability of the cloaking units quite a lot. I finally find another probe in my back nebula. I sent a probe in there because probes have great vision in nebulas. Scouts actually don't, they kind of suck. But I need the scouts to kill the probes, so it's going to be a conjunction there. I've started making ions, which is, I think this is the tech that kind of ends the game, because they are stuck right now. If you look at most of their frigates, a lot of them are torpedo frigates, some of them are assault frigates. They have a couple of ions, but like I said, Powerman just makes... he just tries to make every single unit in the game, which is not what you want to do. If he had a lot more torpedoes or a lot more ions, this would be a much worse position for me. But he's got flax in there. I think he starts throwing random corvettes in. It's not too good. Here's the technology that I was talking about that's going to save me in this game. Iron frigates, they will win the game, but there's too many frigates from the opponent here. Frigates beat frigates in numbers like this. Even if they're not ions, torpedoes will still beat ions that are trickling out of a carrier like this. But what they won't beat, what he doesn't have enough of, what neither of them have enough of, is anti-fighter. So I just start spamming bombers, and you'll see these bombers will survive to the end of the game. They never die. I continually reinforce them, they continue to do damage for the entirety of this fight. They're probably the thing that swung it in my favour. The iron frigates will look very flashy at the end. I'll start making defense fields. You know, those will draw the focus, but I think the real MVPs of my force here were these bombers, because they never really get countered. He has a 3 or 4 flax at any given time. I just target them down, you know? They die quicker than my bombers die. So as you can see, my frigates are just getting cleared up as they appear out of the carrier, but the bombers are uncontested, the pulsars are still doing damage, you know. This is starting to become dangerous for frigates. They need to move away from frigates at this point. Move back a tier, move back to corvettes, move back to fighters. If you start flooding me with interceptors here, that'd be really bad for me. I can't stop interceptors with anything I have. I don't have my own interceptors, I don't have any gunships on the field, I can only make them, and they don't build that quickly. If you made tons of interceptors here, you could just snipe all my bombers, or you could snipe my resource collectors, etc. Xeno actually did have a couple of corvettes, so he sends those to my back patch again, and he actually does a lot more damage to me again, which is very annoying. Because at this point I'm trying to gain momentum, you know, this is a big momentum shift in this game. They've been pushing me, and I've been trying to damage them but not getting anything done. I'm starting to clear up their force finally here. The bombers are doing way too much damage. This carrier is starting to get focused. I'll cloak that in a second, but I'll let them target it for a while, because it can absorb quite a few shots, it'll let my bombers do things for free. Hopefully my ions can build up a certain count, so they can start actually dealing damage to the enemy frigates. Xeno around the back here, he's got some heavy vets, he's got some light vets. The light vets should be targeting the collectors, and to be honest, so should the heavy vets. I send some pulsars, I don't actually have enough. I start making them for my mothership, which is a panic move. This was a really good move from Xeno, but he fluffs it up, just like I fluffed the econ harass that I did to him. He messes this up because what he does is he starts shooting collectors that are docked to the refinery. It will slow down the process of harvesting RUs, because the ones that have finished harvesting, they won't be able to dock for a while those other two are hogging the spaces. But the ones that are in the spaces, they're continually healing. A lot of the shots get absorbed by the refinery as well, so the DPS of the light vets is worse than halved. So I finally cloaked this carrier. It takes a while to cloak because you can't cloak if you're taking shots, you also can't cloak if you're shooting. But it finally goes under. And this is a great opportunity for me to start building up a number of iron frigates while cloaked. You saw that when they were coming out one by one, they were just getting focus fired and dying. With the cloak, I'll be able to build up a certain number of them. I'll have 2 defense fields as well. And that'll be the foothold that I need to start actually sniping frigates quite quickly. I mean, the bombers are already doing a lot of damage, so it will just be a double whammy in that regard. My pulsars eventually do clean up those light vets and the heavy vets on my expansion. The heavy vets correctly do target my defending pulsars, because heavy vets are great against corvettes, but like I said, he messed up his targeting with the light vets, so it didn't do too much damage. I'm able to dock, I think. Yeah, I think that pulsar manages to dock, so I don't even take any military losses. I think I lost 1 collector, definitely not enough, he could have done a lot more there. So you see, their frigate presence looks a lot less intimidating now. They've just got a handful now, whereas they had a force before. This carrier's on low health, but they have no proximity detectors. Even if they did get one, I would toggle the cloak, and they'd lose a ton of frigates in exchange, and at this point I have enough forces where I can replace lost carriers. I have 3 carriers now, so you know, I don't really want to dip below 2 carriers. That's really dangerous territory for Homeworld 2, but having 2 carriers and losing the 3rd one, that's not necessarily a huge loss, even with Hagaran, who have more expensive carriers. With Vega you can just throw away carriers, to be honest. They take such little time to build. I'm still cloaked, but you're going to see I suddenly burst out of my cloak. I've got 2 defense fields, I've got a couple of irons here. The units they have, they don't do enough damage to frigates anyway. Combined with the defense fields, my frigates are going to be completely invulnerable. Defense fields, if you stack 2 of them on top of each other, they actually block 90% of incoming fire. It's ludicrous. I tend to stagger my defense fields though, so what my defense fields will do, I'll activate one, when it runs out I activate the other, because their recharge time and their active time is the same, so you can continually have at least 1 up. That's how I use them. Tends to be more useful. You're rarely taking so much fire that you need that 90% reduction, and then 45 seconds of no reduction. It's usually best to have continuous 30 to 40% reduction. So yeah, a lot of the iron beams are getting blocked, a lot of the ballistics are getting blocked. He has a destroyer now, but I'm not worried about destroyers. Not at this stage of the game, not with this many irons, not with this many bombers. Especially now that my irons have... just ignore that. Just ignore that. Now that my irons have got the upgrades, I'm not really afraid of destroyers at all. Irons with upgrades in defense fields, they just chew destroyers up. Destroyers are fine. They're mostly a damage soak though. They're much better in the early game. I think they fall off significantly as the game goes on. Their DPS is really low for the amount of RUs you spend. You can just have 3 or 4 pulsars and they'll do about the same damage. And they'll have the added benefit of not dying to iron cannons. I'm not a fan of destroyers. I think they're slightly better in 2.3. I definitely think they have their uses, but in this scenario, I wouldn't. It's too late. You should have had destroyers already if you were going to make them. So my bombers, I'm confident that I can take the fight at the front now that I've got defense fields up. My frigates are invulnerable. Their numbers are spiraling out of control. They're starting to lose this position. They've got carriers close to the front. Those are in danger. The destroyer's going to go down. The iron cannons from the enemy can't even hit my frigates. I sniped that refinery with my bombers. What I should have done here is I should have turned to his carrier there with my bombers. I should have just immediately sniped it. But for some reason, I see these ints that are chasing my bombers, and I decide to run around for some reason. Big mistake from me. I should have just... I mean, I win anyway, but yeah. Definitely some decision-making mistakes from me. I definitely needed to move my carriers up before this as well, probably about a minute or two before this. They're quite close anyway, so it's not too much of a problem, but they should be with my iron frigates. They don't have anything to threaten my carriers particularly, especially with the cloak. What I could have done is I could have had my defense fields under a cloak from a carrier, then they would have really been invulnerable, because defense fields don't shoot if you have them in passive, and they can't be shot, and I can just have free defense fields and they never get shot down, don't have to replace them. I'm just focusing his frigates down, they die. Nothing they can do at this point, not enough of them. The destroyer, that iron frigate right there is on about 20% health. There is a full salvo from that destroyer and it still didn't kill it. Yeah, their DPS is just too low for this stage of the game. There's not too much they can do from this point. I have too many irons. Those frigates over there from Xeno, those are all assault frigates. I don't know why he made this many assault frigates. I think he thought that I had more corvettes than I did, maybe. Maybe he thought I was teching back into corvettes, but no, it was iron frigates. The destroyers just die one by one because they're worthless in this scenario. The interceptors do clear up a lot of my bombers, but I have so many of them, and I'm replacing them as they go, so my bomber count never really drops too low. His mothership's in a vulnerable position now. My carriers are moving up. I've got him inside an inhib field. I've got defense fields, cloaks. I've got all the tech I need. I'm starting to make more money that I can spend. There was a moment there where I wasn't making units from my mothership, which is another mistake. You can see I'm actually banking nearly 1,000 IUs there. Just a small mistake. Not game ending. Not at this point. I've got so much of an advantage. But yeah. It's rough for these guys now. I'm not sure what they're supposed to do in this scenario. Xenofix could probably fall back and try and ball up some Homeworld 1 destroyers, which are significantly better against frigates. He can try and ball up, switch back into bombers maybe, heavy vets. Mine layers would have been a good choice. I don't really have anything to deal with them. His RU patch is in trouble, his carriers are in trouble. This carrier just goes down to bombers. Losing a carrier is Homeworld 1. I talked about Homeworld 1 carriers earlier. They take so long to build, and he's going to lose one. That's devastating. The carrier from Powerman, the mothership from Powerman now is going to go down to my iron frigates. I probably, if I was these guys, I would have called the game now, because they can't make the tech that they need in the time that I'm going to give them. If I sat back and try and bring out destroyers or something, maybe, yeah, maybe they can get enough destroyers or maybe even a heavy cruiser out, that might slow me down, but I have so much map control, I can expand wherever I want. Powerman's lost his mothership, Xeno's lost a carrier, they're not making enough money anyway, you'll see that at the end. My carriers are just pushing through unimpeded now. There's a couple of interceptors and things from Powerman, but not enough. Powerman calls GG. Reasonable. He still has a carrier. He could... I would honestly just surrender in this scenario. There's nothing he can do. These assault frigates come in. There's a couple of irons mixed in there, but they're mostly assaults. They couldn't find my irons even without the defense fields, but I have defense fields, so this is just such a ludicrously one-sided fight. Not worried at all. I even have bombers. I finally sent them after that carrier. At this point, it's really done. I'm just in cleanup mode now. I'm pushing through it. I've got too many RU patches. I even moved to the center there. I replaced that carrier with a refinery in a second so I can move it up. Defense fields back up. I'm replacing the one that I just lost. Destroyer finally comes out. If you're Homeworld 1, you can comfortably make destroyers by 15 minutes is what I'd consider to be quite a late destroyer. So 30 minutes in, your first destroyer, definitely too late. I think that's just his inexperience though. He's been playing quite quickly, he's been playing smart, so the fact that he doesn't have destroyers early enough, I think that's just a lack of experience, rather than a commentary on his actual talent at the game. I'm pushing in now, carriers pushing in, iron frigates moving up. I've got too many bombers, those aren't contested, drone frigates just drop. Quite a useless unit, I think they need a buff. But yeah, defense field goes down, but at this point it doesn't even matter. Power Man's out of the game now. I killed his carrier with my bombers. I'm just doing more of the same at this point. I don't need to do anything special here. I've got so many numbers. I've got all the tech that I want. I've got all the upgrades I want. I don't need improved bombs, for example. I'm just getting it to spend my money. Because at this point I'm very confident that my iron frigates can end the game. He doesn't have enough production. He lost the carrier. He never replaces it. He doesn't have time to replace it as Homeworld 1. It takes too long. I'm on 3 carriers and a mothership and plenty of patches, loads of resource collectors. I've got all my upgrades. Got an inhib up, a cloak up, defense fields up, probes everywhere. It's clean up from this point. I think he actually taps out because he realizes it too. Once I move on to this carrier position, I even snipe the engines because I got the improved bombs. Once he loses this carrier, it really will be GG, if it isn't already. I mean, I've even still got some pulsars alive that never got cleared up. You know, you could take all of my bombers and retire them all, and I'd still win. You could take all my irons and retire them all, I'd still win. From this position, it's less about his skill or my skill, it's more just a game of numbers. Just pushing in now. Bombers are going to take out the carrier before I even get there. But I'm worried about the scuttle damage, so I actually think I fly my bombers upwards so my irons can finish the job. Look at what he's got. He's just got like 5 vets over there. There's nothing he can do. At this point, I think he taps out, which is very reasonable. Don't be afraid to surrender if you think you absolutely can't win. Try and hang on as long as possible. You can learn a lot from losing games. But from this position, I don't think there's anything to learn. You know, you're just going to get overwhelmed. Doesn't matter what you do. And there he is. There he goes. He's surrendered. I called a GG well played. I think he says GG. He also says that he was lagging a little bit. I think that was because my pulsar docked with a Homeworld 1 refinery. It can cause frame rate issues as well. So it's doubly annoying. It's annoying for me, it's annoying for everyone in the game, and I can't do anything about it because my ally is a Homeworld 1 player who is an AI, so I can't tell him to undock, scuttle the refinery. Just the slaughter, really, in the stats. The main reason I won, though, I'll tab to it now, I think. Yes, if you look at my RUs collected and spent, it's double what Power Man got, and it's 1.5 times what Xeno got. They only built 11 and 14 harvesters each. That's not enough. There was no reason for this. The game was quite even for quite a long time. You definitely had room to make more collectors. And to be honest, in a 2v1, it's a game of numbers. If you had enough money, you could have just overwhelmed me. I tried my best. I think I played okay. I didn't micro that fast, I didn't macro that fast. It was an okay performance from me. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about this game. I'll probably do more of these in the future, where I'm playing different races with different players, different maps, stuff like that. Hopefully you got a little bit of an insight into what I'm thinking as the game goes forward. And I know I spent quite a lot of this complaining about different units. That's just because I've played the game so much, I'm old and bitter. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. So hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Hopefully you liked the video. It's my first video, so I hope the audio and everything's okay. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time.